Welcome everyone to the showdown between the Empire, who shall be led by Karl Franz atop Deathclaw. And today, guys, we face off against the Tomb Kings, who shall be led by Setzer the Imperishable atop his mighty Sphinx. And it looks like he is going to be joined by two caskets. So a couple weeks ago, the Casket of Souls did get a huge buff in the most recent DLC, in the Malice Darkblade and Rat Assassin DLC, which is totally slipping my brain right now. But nonetheless, they were pretty overpowered when the changes were first applied. It was just a massive increase to their accuracy. Now, Caskets always did hit pretty hard, but again, accuracy was their big issue. They would just kind of shoot randomly. They would literally just shoot circles around the targets they were aiming at. But if they do make contact, they hit like absolute trucks. Now, I believe there was a hotfix while I was on vacation in Poland with my wife between the DLC launch and now, which did nerf their accuracy a little bit, but they're still better than they were before, but nonetheless not quite as oppressive as they were. Now, as far as the build goes, it is going to be the unbreakable front line, so Flagellants and Sigmar Sons, which there are some matchups in which I really like bringing that unbreakable kind of Sigmarite front line because it allows your cav and your guns and your cannons to really, be much more efficient because you don't have to worry about your back line being compromised so quickly as you do with like state troops and spearmen and things like that. So in the front, it's going to be Sigmar Sons, 2 Flagellants. We do also have the Silver Bullets, a pretty good not anti-large, but anti-armor unit. So if you're facing off against constructs, these guys are quite nice. And oftentimes Tomb Kings will rush in constructs. And these guys, of course, have stock, so they'll really surprise your opponents. And I think they do some serious work. Up in the sky, we have Galmaraz, so we have Karl Franz wielding Galmaraz, and Reichel Runefang, so he does, of course, have that nice anti-large kit. We got a Jade Wizard, which, if you're going to be going with Old Boy Franzi and Demogryph Knights and, cav units like Knights of the Blazing Sun, having healing is just always super valuable. So 2 groups of the Knights of the Blazing Sun as well. Look at that brutal shot coming in from the casket, taking half HP off the Flagellants. But the Knights of the Blazing Sun, these guys do some serious work for sure against like light infantry. So if you're facing off against Tomb Guard, Skeletons, Skeleton Archers, anything like that, these guys can do some great stuff. And on top of that, they have magic resist. So if you're facing off against like the new dreaded Casket, they of course are going to be mitigating 25% of that damage, which is going to be quite helpful. I mean, that's substantial for sure. So yeah, in total, I have 2 of those groups. And in the back, 2 cannons, 2 great cannons, which I was expecting maybe 1 casket, maybe some Ushabti great bows, and the cannons are basically a counter to both of those units. So I have 2 great cannons and some Demogryph Knights with halberds back here. Now, against the Tomb Kings, you don't really need to invest in the Royal Altdorf Griffites simply because you're paying for terror in a matchup in which it is pretty much useless. So that is my army there. I don't think I have anything else lurking in the shadows. Now for the forces of Grombrindle here, aka the Undertaker. He's got skeletons across the entire front line. That's pretty standard. You don't really need much to fight against Empire infantry. And he does also have Setzer the Imperishable going in pretty aggressive. It looks like he might be bull rushing in, but he still hasn't discovered the Silver Bullets. So he probably thinks he has like a free charge right here. On top of that, the Blessed Legion, and on the far side, Skeleton Archers, the Eyes of the Desert, which have been massively buffed here in the back as well, and he does have 2 groups of Tomb Guard with halberds defending his back line. So let's get this show on the road, guys, and have some fun. So Setzer is going to be surging in, going after the Sigmar Sons initially, but Franz is going to be coming in. He is not going to let his men stand alone. He's going to go in fierce with Galmaraz, but now the Silver Bullets have popped out, and Setzer's like, oh man, I'm in the wrong neighborhood. I gotta get out of here, and Setzer is going to be turning and tail and running. And the cannons, in the meantime, going after the Casket of Souls. So I actually played in one of Dog Plays' events a couple weeks ago, and I just got punished so bad by the Casket of Souls. Granted, this was before it got nerfed, so I was like, never again will the Casket of Souls punish me. So we brought 2 cannons just to bring those bad boys down. And you can see Knights of the Blazing Sun are able to easily outmaneuver the Tomb Guard with halberds and get into the back line, shutting down Skeleton Archers. Granted, the Eyes of the Desert shooting in as well, doing some okay damage here against the Knights of the Blazing Sun. Do they do magic damage? They do, actually. So that 25% resistance coming in useful again against the Eyes of the Desert and their snake eye attacks. Casket of Souls still raining some serious fire, able to really punish my Silver Bullets. On top of that, hitting my Great Cannon as well. And it looks like there's going to be a Vortex spell going down here against the Silver Bullets. A Druid Sandstorm being dropped there, so my handgunners really just getting wrecked. But nonetheless, we've really pulled ahead on the bounce of power, taking out a Casket, plus 2 Skeleton Archers. And Setzer has just been manhandled by Karl Franz. So much damage coming in. Galmaraz popped as well. And I did pull back when I saw the Eyes of the Desert coming in. I didn't want to get trapped up because Franz is not the tankiest of lads. His melee defense isn't the best, and it is a very scary situation if he gets surrounded by a bunch of anti-large halberds and things like that. So in the back, Tomb Kings are going to be summoning their Ushabti, so the Realm of Soul summon is active here, and they're probably going to be jumping on the Great Cannons, I would imagine. So the Demogryph Knights, who were kind of in reserve, now are going to be pulling in to fend off those Ushabti. So here they come, and they should be able to make pretty quick work here of these Ushabti as they're basically a hard counter. So the Ushabti here getting surrounded by those. I may still lose the cannon, but nonetheless, Franz going in to try and finish off Setzer, but I can't quite catch him. He's juking me pretty well here. Setzer coming in for a return attack, 3,300 HP on Franz. And it looks like Setzer might make contact there. Hard to say. Eyes of the Desert are being used for their ranged attacks, but oftentimes I think it's a mistake a lot of people make is they just keep them in ranged mode, but getting them into melee combat and trying to surround Franz there might have been a much better play. So nonetheless, Franz going to be coming back here, going after the casket, trying to lure Settra away from his reinforcing elements, getting him away there, but oh, Settra just gets slapped by Deathclaw, and down he goes. And now Franz probably going to be feasting on the soul of this casket here. I can't see that thing lasting much longer. And the Knights of the Blazing Sun just kind of bouncing around back and forth, trying to take out elements of my opponent's army. Now, in the back line here, Demogryph Knights with Halberds were able to finish off those Ushapti. Silver Bullets are back online, so those boys should be coming back online here. And, well, I just said that twice. I hate when I say things like twice in a row or repeat a phrase. It's something that's so easy to do when you're like casting in these scenarios, because your brain's trying to take these shortcuts, right, to get the information out quicker. But hey, anyways, I could go on for days about the psychology of it all. But the Knights of the Blazing Sun charging into the back of Tomb Guards with Halberds and getting a nice little charge there. And they only have 50 armor, right? So if you do get a rear charge when they're unbraced, you're going to be getting your money's worth. And Franz is going to be pulling over here as well, maybe looking to pick on these Tomb Guard with Halberds, who again are inundated in combat here against the Flagellants and some of these other forces. And now there are the Eyes of the Desert left, but the battle's looking pretty grim for the Tomb Kings as cannons are shooting in here, just teeing off into the Eyes of the Desert, really getting some solid value. And here comes Franz. Franzi Man going to be coming in like the hero of the Empire, Golem Miraz wielded, taking shots in the face, but not caring at all. And the Knights of the Blazing Sun able to get a huge charge bonus there on those guys. And you can see these sneaky snakes certainly not in the best situation. They have 8 models left, but the cannons are also shooting at the models in the back. And as far as what the Tomb Kings have left in the infantry department, there are the King Nikesh's Scorpion Legion. We have some Halberds over here, Halberds, and some Skeleton Archers. But that's pretty much going to be it. So that's a relatively quick game, but again, it really came down to the fact that the caskets were so hard countered. They are a relatively expensive investment. Caskets, I think, cost 11 or 1200. So if an 800 gold cannon is able to trade proportionally with them and really take them out, it's going to be a pretty brutal situation for the Tomb Kings, because that's gold that you don't have on skirmishing units like Nahakar Horsemen and maybe more constructs and more powerhouse units. And though they did get some okay value, the caskets were able to kind of nuke my infantry and some of those other forces. They really just didn't pay for themselves. And the great cannons of Sigmar were able to just rain havoc in there and really take out those caskets. So Franz also did a great job against Settra, because also due to the fact that the caskets were there, Settra didn't have too much support, and Franz plus his Silver Bullets were able to really get the optimal jumps on Settra. But again, Settra should have probably stayed back and been a little bit more conservative, but he also didn't have enough to defend his back line. The Knights of the Blazing Sun and those other troops were able to bounce back and forth, and the only thing to really keep pace on them were Tomb Guards with Halberds and of course Eyes of the Desert, but none of those units are super quick. The Eyes, I think, have like 50 something speed. Knights of the Blazing Sun, of course, I believe have 70 or 66 speed, so they're able to outmaneuver those guys and really get their money's worth, to say the least. But yeah, Franz, a hero as always, just rocking it, doing some anti-large damage, and that is going to be the first of 2 games here in this video. Grombrindle and I played actually 3 games, so I'll be showing you guys all 3, but in this video I'll show you 2, and then there was one that was actually really long and intense, which will be a separate video, so you guys will be seeing that. So now we're going to be jumping over to the next battle, which is going to be my Skaven facing off against his dwarves, so we'll see you guys in just a second. And now we return, my friends, with a Skaven versus Dwarf showdown. It's going to be QUEEK Headtaker, who you guys don't see terribly often, facing off against Grombrindle. So a bit of a mismatch in terms of just raw dueling power, but we're going to see if QUEEK can use his Skaven cunning prowess to take apart this Dwarven army. Now, as far as the build goes, this is my new favorite build against Dwarves with Skaven. Now, a lot of Dwarf players are getting very used to dealing with like Doom player rushes and things like that, and as such they bring a bunch of gyrocopters with brimstone guns. They use the mass and the anti-large there to really kind of deal with you. Smoke bomb from Grombrindle, so I've kind of taken it back a step, and the way I play here is I use Poison Wind Mortars. So I bring 3 of those bad boys, and they're small enough that even if the Dwarves bring cannons to counter your Plague Claw catapults or your artillery, the Poison Wind Mortars aren't really a good target for cannons. It takes forever to pick off the 9 models. They're very, very small targets. And, with the Poison Wind effect, you can take out Ironbreakers, elite troops very, very easily. So in total, there's going to be a couple groups of the Poison Wind Mortars, 3 of those. We have some Natty Bubo Sharpshooters in the back. We have some Rattling Gunners. For the front line, it's going to be Skaven Slaves and Clan Rats. Not going to be trying to contest that front line engagement here against the Proud Dawi. Rather, going to be using Chaff units, summons from a Plague Priest, and then also the Wheels of Doom and one group of the Flayers to try and interrupt the Dwarven advance. And I also did bring a bunch of sharpshooters, well, not sharpshooters, but missile units, so the sharpshooters plus some Rattling Gunners here in the back, just to make sure that I had ample answers against Gyrocopter play, which I was expecting he would bring simply to shut down Doom Flares and Doom Wheel Rushes, which have, for the longest time, been the metagame against Dwarves. Now for the leadership, we do have QUEEK Headtaker with a Dwarf Gouger and Trophy Heads, and he also has a Plague Priest with him, so that's my whole army. Now for Grombrindle, he does have gyrocopters with brimstone guns. It looks like maybe 2 with brimstone, 1 standard variant. Obviously just looking to take out gyrocopters, or not gyrocopters, but Doom Wheels and Flares. For the main line, it's going to be Dwarf Warriors, and actually he has a Scolder Guard and some Iron Drakes across the board, Grombrindle, and in the back, Grumbling Guard, and 2 groups of Iron Breakers, one of which is going to be Nord Gremlings, which I was very happy about. The Mortars are basically like a counter to Dwarven box play. If the Dwarves are going to box, the Mortars are going to get in there and do some serious work. So you can see the shots already coming in, and some of the collateral damage actually hits 2 units, and the Poison Wind effect really actually adds up quite quickly against the Dwarves. Now in the back, you do see the Gyrocopter with the Brimstone Gun coming in here as well, but the Rattling Gunners are able to tee off on that guy pretty easily. And I do also have the Ixchus Triads back here, the anti-large Triad unit, of course, very, very good at fending off the diving of the Gyrocopters. And in the late game, they can fight Dwarven infantry if they have to. Natty Bubo Sharpshooters doing the same thing, shooting those Gyrocopters with the Brimstone Guns, but the Dwarves, of course, are eventually going to advance and make it into combat. So we're going to be summoning some Clan Rats right here, some Plague Monks, to fight these Dwarf Warriors off, while the Mortars just kind of continue to saturate the lines. You can see every poke getting in there, even if there is some friendly fire against my forces. Skaven don't mind that. We have the numbers, the Dwarven infantry here do not. So there is a Doom Flare in the back, kind of occupying these troops here. So the Iron Drakes and the Iron Breakers here, a little bit broken up. The Wheels of Doom doing the exact same thing. And really, there's not too much anti-large in this army aside from the Gyrocopters, which are just being punished so heavily from the gun line. So with the Gyrocopters being shut down from the Rattling Gunners and the Jezzails and some of these other forces here, it's going to be really hard for my opponent to take on those forces. Now, QUEEK Headtaker has engaged in melee combat, so he's pretty good at, clearing through infantry, especially armored ones. So he's going to be doing some work here against the Dwarven infantry. But of course, Grombrindle is nearby. The White Dwarf comes for vengeance as the bounce of power already goes in the favor of the Skaven. So he's going to need to make some plays here for sure, as the Poison Wind is really starting to take a toll on this Dwarven army. So here comes Grombrindle, and honestly, I didn't notice this. Grombrindle gets the Flash Bomb right there. QUEEK Headtaker was attacking some other troops, but 1 or 2 attacks, and Grombrindle is immediately just toasting QUEEK. So QUEEK turns around to fight, gets a couple shanks against Grombrindle, but the White Dwarf just laying a beating on QUEEK Headtaker, which was completely my fault. I should have used Verminous Valor and ran away, but I was so occupied with microing my Doom Wheels and my Mortars and switching targets to optimize their efficiency that I really didn't see the White Dwarf coming. So the Mortars continue to fire in, shooting against the Dwarven infantry right here, and you can see these Dwarf Warriors back here are also fighting against some Clan Rats, and it looks like they should be able to win that fight. Now the Dwarves may be able to get into the Mortar line in the back, but basically when you're playing against Dwarves, you want to pull them out of their comfort zone, and by putting the Mortars very far apart, if the Dwarven lines advance, usually they stay in a tight formation, and they're going to have some trouble going after all 3 Mortars. And of course, we had the answers for the Gyrocopters and other things like that. And Grombrindle is now chasing. He was able to just annihilate QUEEK. QUEEK is running for the hills. He got shattered. So now we're going to be kiting backwards, using our Rattling Gunners with their suppression fire to slow down Grombrindle to 20 speed, which is certainly quite nice. So this boy here, in a little bit of trouble. As you can see, Natty Bubo Sharpshooters are going to be shooting in against Grombrindle. And here we go. 32, 31, 31, 50, 32, 25. Grombrindle, the White Dwarf, getting very, very low from that focus fire. Now, some Dwarven Gyrocopter action is going to be surging into the back line, trying to shut down my missiles, but I don't see those guys being able to do too much more, as the Rattling Gunners are going to be turning about face. So the Dwarves do have one last pocket of resistance. They have some Iron Drakes, some other troops here, but the Mortars from the Skaven really just taking a toll over the course of the game, and Grombrindle is going to be broken off as well. So yeah, I just wanted to show you guys that. I know the replays, this replay and maybe the one before, were a little bit one-sided, but basically I think they illustrated, and I don't think it was because of a play thing, it was more based on the builds. I just wanted to show you guys some strong, effective builds against both the Dwarves as well as the Tomb Kings. I think that Empire build against Tomb Kings is pretty good. Granted, it has its weaknesses for sure, but I thought it was quite effective, and as do I with the Skaven build. Now, if you wanted to really optimize a Skaven build, I would probably cut QUEEK, and maybe opt to get, Lord Skrull type character or a Gracier on a Bell. Granted, that is a big target. You basically don't want to give the Dwarves big targets. And honestly, QUEEK isn't bad here. Had I been a little bit more careful and make sure to get the optimal engagements with trophy heads active when Grombrindle had been softened up, that would probably be quite a bit better. But yeah, Skrull probably still a bit of a better pick here because of Lieber and the fact that he has summon, so you don't have to pay for a Plague Priest. Then you can get some other elements in your army. But yeah, QUEEK's not bad. I just played poorly with him and I paid the Troll Toll. As far as this army goes, I think it had some decent answers against like a Doom Wheel rush, but I think you need some Slayers for sure. And he was probably just having some fun, obviously, mixing in some of these like Iron Drakes and things like that. But really, they didn't have too much effective against my army because there was just Skaven slaves to shoot at and then big armored targets, which these troops aren't particularly good against. So well played to Grombrindle, guys. In the third game between us will probably be the next video I post. It was a really epic battle between my High Elves, and I think he was playing, what was he playing? Oh, it was his Skaven, I think. Yeah, it was a Lithanar facing off against Deathmaster. It was a really fun game. So stay tuned for that, guys. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you guys on the other side. Take care.